All right, so we are looking at taking a quadratic function that's in standard form or intercept form and turning it into vertex form. So vertex form is right here. So that's what we're going to be turning everything into. Now when we're dealing from standard form to vertex form, there are two main methods that you can use. So what I'm going to do in this video is I'm going to do everything using method 2. So it's called completing the square. And we're going to be using this quite a bit this year. So that's kind of what I want to focus on it. I'm probably going to end up making another video, at least probably two examples using method 1. So you can do method 1 if you choose. It's just a little lengthy. That's why I don't really like it. Some people do. Completing the square is by far my favorite, and we use it in other things in the class in Algebra 2, so we're going to take a look at that. So in example 1, we have an equation written in standard form. So when we're in standard form, what we want to do, I'm just going to leave the f of x there. We don't have to write it every time. So f of x equals x squared plus 10x. And what I want to do is I want to leave a little space here. And you'll see why here in a second. And then we'll write the minus 13. So we haven't changed anything. Now the process for completing the square is this. I'm trying to find a perfect square trinomial. So when I factor it, I can write it as a binomial squared, which you'll see here in a minute. So what we need to do is take the b value, which I will write like this for this first example only. Now, if you guys want to use this, go ahead and you can write it like this every single time. But I'm going to take the b and we're going to divide it by 2, and then we're going to square it. Okay, so think about this. 10 divided by 2 is 5. Then square it, we get our 25. So I'm adding 25 to our equation. So in order to keep the equation the same equation, what I need to do is trick it. We're going to minus that same value from the end. So I've added a 25, and I've also subtracted a 25. So really, we didn't do anything to the equation. So remember, this is 25 here, just so I don't have to write another line. So what I want to look at is this trinomial, just these first 3 terms, and I want to factor it out. So remember, factors of 25 that add up to 10. Well, it's just 5 and 5. In the process of completing the square, we can always know that it's just half of the b value. It's just both of those numbers. And I want to write it so it's in vertex form. So we have x plus 5. We know if we multiply something by itself, we can just say it's squared. And then we have this minus 13 and minus 25 that we can't forget about. So we need to put those together. And we're going to keep dropping it down. And this is all equal to f of x. So now we're in vertex form. So we can go ahead and write the vertex form here. So f of x equals x plus 5 quantity squared minus 38. All right, so now the vertex. So the vertex is our minimum value if our parabola is opening up, and it's our maximum value if our parabola is opening down. So the vertex is the h and the k. So I'm going to write that here for the first example. That's a h and a k. So when we look at this, remember looking back at our format up above, our h value, it's x minus h. So really this is x minus negative 5. So when we were dealing with transformations the other day, we knew if it was in the parentheses, we had to think the opposite direction of what we saw. So this is a negative 5 inside. And then the k value is just whatever we see. So it's a minus 38. Okay, negative 38. That's it. We've completed the square and identified the vertex, and we have vertex form. So same thing here. We have x squared minus 4x. I'm going to leave a gap, put the minus 6 there. So we're thinking half of b, which is negative 2, and then we're going to square it, and we get 4. So I'm adding 4 and subtracting 4. So now we factor this out. That's just x minus 2 quantity squared. Okay, so remember this is always half a b that's inside the quantity squared. And then negative 6, negative 4 is negative 10. So now this is our vertex form. You can go ahead and write that down here. And then our vertex is a positive 2, because our h is 2. Let me rewrite that. Positive 2 and a negative 10. Okay. Brings us to the checkpoint, so go ahead and pause and try it. All right, so hopefully this went well. We have an x squared plus 24 x plus 145. All right, now we do half of b, which is 12, and then square it, so plus 144. And then we're going to subtract 144. Factoring out this gives us x plus 12. We're going to square that quantity. And then we get a positive 1. So there's our vertex form. The vertex is a negative 12 and a positive 1. All right, and then the second one, so we should have, so half of b is 16, so we can go ahead and do that. Sorry, half of 16 is 8, so we're putting 8 inside. And then 8 squared is going to be a 64. So we're going to go ahead and minus 64 from 15. And that gives us a negative 49. Okay, so you don't have to write all the steps if you can think about it in your head and then do it that way. So now the vertex is negative 8 and negative 49. Okay. All right, in example 2, they give us the quadratic in intercept form. So if you're in intercept form, and what it wants is which of the following is an equivalent function written in the correct vertex form. Okay, so we're looking for vertex form. So the first two can be eliminated right away. We have standard form here, so we know it's not A or B. So what we have to do when it's in intercept form is multiply this out. So it's just one step before we complete the square. So multiply that, we get x squared plus 10x, and then plus 24. So if we complete the square, so we're doing half of b goes inside. I'm going to square that. So we are adding 25 and then subtracting 25. So we have a minus 1 on the outside. So that should be option C. All right, and now the last. Instead of an equation, we're going to be starting with a graph of a quadratic function. And we're asked to write a function in vertex form, looking at the graph. So anytime you have to do this, we are thinking of our standard way that we write vertex form. So it's on the front. First thing we looked at today. So we're going to use this and do what we do in algebra all the time. So something we've done forever is taking known values, plugging them into an equation, and then solving for unknowns. So to identify what h and k are, we just look at the vertex. So the minimum point down here is the vertex. So h is 1, k is -3. So we're going to go ahead and fill that in. So I'm going to leave some spaces for all the variables. And then plug in what we know. So h we said was 1, k is -3. And then the other point, we need to find another point on a parabola, which is given here is 3, 5. So 3 is the x, 5 is the y, and we have an x right here and then a y right here. So we're going to go ahead and plug those in. So 5 goes in for f of x, and then 3 goes in for the x, and then our unknown is a. So that's what we're trying to find. So let's go ahead and simplify this. We know we have to deal with parentheses first. So 3 minus 1 is 2, quantity squared. So that would be 4. So a times 4, we can just write that as 4a, and then minus 3. So what a lot of people will do sometimes is go ahead and they'll look inside the parentheses, they'll grab that, they'll square it, and then they're going to subtract 3. So you want to avoid doing that because of order of operations. So always square the quantity that you find in here and multiply it by a. So we're writing it like that. So now we're solving for a. So we'll go ahead and add 3 over to the other side. So we get 8 equals 4a. And then divide by 4, we get a equals 2. So we're not done because we are not asked to find a. We want an equation. So we're going to take a and we're going to plug it back into our standard format along with our h and our k. So we get f of x equals a times x minus h, square it, and then plus k. So we just created a quadratic equation by looking at a graph. So try the checkpoint, and I'll be back with you. All right, so we have an x and a y, so 0 and a 5, and then we have an h and a k here, 2 and a 1. So go ahead and plug those in. So 5 goes in for the y. A is our unknown. X is 0 minus h, which is 2. And then we're going to square that. And then we have a positive 1 for our k. So let's clean this up. So -2 squared is 4. So 4a plus 1 equals 5. And now we can solve for a. So subtract 1. 4 equals 4a. So divide both sides by 4. So we know a is 1. Now we're going to use that and plug it into the equation. So f of x equals, so 1, I'm not going to write it because we know nothing up front means it's 1. So x minus 2, quantity squared, plus 1 would be our final answer. All right, so let me know if you have any questions on any of the examples or the homework, and that's it.